kimwe FM twese hamwe birashoboka.
We got you updated. This is Radio Imanzi News in English.
You are tuned to Radio Imanzi broadcasting from Kigali. Here is the news in English, brought to you by Fiona Umuganwa. The headlines. President Paul Kagame today received Honorable Antonio Tete, Minister of External Relations of Angola. Children's rights activists have called for special support for vulnerable families that are said to integrate children with disabilities. Police in Western India arrested 9 people today as they investigated the collapse of a suspension bridge. Welcome back. News in detail. President Paul Kagame today received Honorable Antonio Tete, Minister of External Relations of Angola, who is in Rwanda, with a message from President João Lourenço of Angola, who is currently serving as chairperson of the International Conference on the Great Lakes region. The visit comes after the African Union called for dialogue to mend relations between Rwanda and DRC amidst reciprocal accusations related to Congolese army for RDC's fighting with M23 rebel group. The request was made through a joint statement released on Sunday by Senegalese President Macky Sall, who also serves as the incumbent African Union chairperson, and Moussa Faki Mahama, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, following DRC's decision to expel Rwanda's ambassador, Vincent Karega. 2 days ago, Rwanda's envoy to DRC, Vincent Karega, was expelled from the country's territory, a move that has since been described as not only regrettable but also Kinshasa's increased efforts to cover up and distract from their own governance and security failures. In the same statement, Rwanda also condemned hate speech and violence in DRC against the Rwandans and Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese communities. President Paul Kagame also said today that he had a good discussion with the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres over the conflict in eastern DRC. President Kagame said in a tweet that discussions centered around ways and means to de-escalate and address the issues to a peaceful end within their capacity, particularly referring to established frameworks, including Nairobi, Luanda, and other international efforts. The East African Legislative Assembly has blamed its Council of Ministers for delaying the ratification of the regional protocols, which are meant to speed up and enable citizens to benefit from the community integration process, which started in July 2000. A report of the committee presented during the first meeting of the 5th session of the 4th Assembly meeting in Kigali today showed that there has been a slow ratification despite the agreed on by respective executives having negotiating them in the first place. MP Kennedy Mukulia Ayasan of South Sudan, the chairperson on legal rules and privileges, said Tanzania is lagging behind with 3 unsigned protocols, and among the other member states, Burundi, Uganda, DRC, and South Sudan, they have at least 1 protocol to ratify. Rwanda has 1 sanitary and phytosanitary measures that is partially worked on. Ayasun said that these delays are because some countries are having issues of bureaucracy in the process of ratification, but also concerns with different laws in partner states, poor national consultation, even when the protocols have been adopted by the councils. The committee said the delay in some protocols has a negative impact on the community at large. Presenting the status, the committee recommended immediate ratification of all pending protocols to pave way for the next steps of East African Community Integration Pillars, which is currently in the third phase of the monetary union following the customs and common market pillars. The East African Legislative Assembly Speaker Martin Ngoga asked why member states are sitting on the protocols which they already agreed to and negotiated at the executive level, and called for immediate action if the East African community is to move to the fourth pillar of integration, meaning political federation. Children's rights activists have called for special support for vulnerable families that are said to integrate children with disabilities. The call is made following the government's decision to also reintegrate children with disabilities into families after phasing out of orphanages. Innocent Habimfura, the country director of Hope and Homes for Children Rwanda, said they are backing the initiative to reintegrate children with disabilities into families, explaining that it takes at least 3 months for children with disabilities to adapt once reintegrated into families. He explained that when children are raised in centers, they grow up as orphans and vulnerable, adding that they have no identity or sense of belonging while at the centers. However, the activist said that for families, especially vulnerable ones, to receive and integrate such children, it requires education, economic empowerment, as well as strengthening the fight against stigma. Habimfura said that once children with disabilities are integrated into families, the centers that were catering for them should continue supporting them daily as daycare centers. He also said that specialists should be deployed to these centers to provide special needs services and occupational therapy. The former state minister in charge of culture, Edward Bamhoriti, has appealed the court's ruling that had convicted him on 2 counts of fraudulent acquisition of another person's property and abusing the authority given to him by the law. Bamhoriti filed the appeal in the High Court in Nyamirambo, challenging the Nyarugenge Intermediate Court ruling, which had handed him a 4-year jail sentence and a fine of 16 million Rwandan francs on September 30th. During the substance trial hearing that took place on September 21st, the prosecution told the court how Bamhoriti solicited a bribe from businessman Norbert Gatera, promising to help him have the city of Kigali reopen his factory, which had been closed for not meeting the requisite requirements. Bamhoriti's lawyers had questioned whether the court had the jurisdiction to hear the case, which they said should have started in the primary court as the law dictates, before heading to the intermediate court, but the court dismissed the claim, saying that it was competent to hear the case.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
The Rwanda Stock Exchange market report of today. The trading session recorded its turnover of 528,000 Rwandan francs worth of bonds traded in one deal on the fixed income market, while the equities market remained quiet. The equities counters closed with Bralirwa at 170 Rwandan francs, Bank of Kigali at 272 Rwandan francs, I&M Bank at 43 Rwandan francs, Smirwa at 120 Rwandan francs, MTN Rwanda at 175 Rwandan francs, Equity Bank at 440 Rwandan francs, Kenya Commercial Bank at 370 Rwandan francs, National Media Group at 1,200 Rwandan francs, Chumi Supermarket at 104 Rwandan francs, and RH Buffalo closed the counter at 526 Rwandan francs as the market closed. The currency market review of today. Burundian franc buying price was 0.5 and the selling price was 0.51. Ugandan shilling buying price 0.27 and the selling price was 0.272. Tanzanian shilling buying price 0.44 and the selling price was 0.45. Kenyan shilling buying price was 8.5 and the selling price was 8.7. The euro buying price 1,034 and the selling price 1,054. British pound buying price was 1,204 and the selling price 1,228. The US dollar buying price 1,038 and the selling price 1,059.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
Tanzania's population expanded by 16 million in 10 years to 61.7 million, according to President Samia Suluhu Hassan. President Suluhu said the census results showed there are 59.8 million in Tanzania and mainland and 1.9 million in the Zanzibar Islands. Of the total population, 31.7 million are females and 30 million are males. Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo addressed the nation today to explain the raft of measures his government will be taking to see its way out of financial turmoil, including measures to support domestic production. Among these measures, Nana Akufo-Addo announced a 30% cut in budgeted discretionary expenditures and salaries of the president, vice president, ministers, deputy ministers, and political office holders. The rise of the COVID-19 pandemic ushered in an era of disillusionment, according to the president. Growth slowed and money borrowed in the market became increasingly high in price. He said these difficulties were exacerbated by the impact of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict on food and energy prices worldwide. Inflation in the country is rising to over 37%, while the currency is depreciating at an unforeseen pace. Since the beginning of the year, the CD has lost over 40% against the dollar. Police in western India arrested 9 people today as they investigated the collapse of a newly repaired 143-year-old suspension bridge in one of the country's worst accidents in years. Officials said the collapse Sunday evening in Gujarat state plunged hundreds of people in a river, killing at least 134. Inspector General Ashok Yadav said police have formed a special investigative team and that those arrested include managers of the bridge's operator or river group and its staff. Gujarat authorities opened a case against River for suspected culpable homicide, attempted culpable homicide and other violations. With that, we come to the end of tonight's edition.